Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us today. I'm Barb Quaintance. I lead the AARP Purpose Prize, which is the only national award given to people age 50 plus who are change makers and social entrepreneurs and making the world a better place. These are people who've had careers in issues that may be related to their work or may not, and have just turned their attention after the age of 50 to change the world, to make it a better place. Sometimes it's very personal. They had a family who had a health issue that led them in that direction. Perhaps they found something in their community that they just could not tolerate. Or maybe, as our guest today, Liz Fanning, she's tackling the whole world. So we very much appreciate your time, and we're very excited to tell you Liz's story. So Liz, welcome.
Hi, Barb. Thanks so much. Great to be here.
Liz Fanning is the founder and CEO of Core Africa, and we're going to spend our time today sharing Liz's story and the work of Core Africa with you. And as always, thank you to IGEA Gen for giving us the time and space for this conversation. So Liz, let me begin by asking about Core Africa. What is your mission? And if you could even just describe the work, what do you do on the ground?
Sure, absolutely. Well, if you know Peace Corps, it's like Peace Corps, but we give college-educated young Africans the chance to serve like Peace Corps volunteers in their own countries. So we have a pre-service training. It's a month of pre-service training, and then it's 10 months of living in a remote, high poverty community with local people. Their role is actually, unlike the Peace Corps, our volunteers go to their sites with no pre-existing agenda. We train them in human-centered design, which is sort of a structure to the facilitation process and problem-solving tools to help the local people identify their highest priority development needs and to come up with a project to address that need. And the volunteers help the communities implement that project by connecting them to resources.
And what countries are you in now, Liz?
We started in Morocco, where I had been a Peace Corps volunteer almost 30 years ago now. And we've since expanded to Senegal, Malawi, Rwanda, Ghana, and Kenya.
Wow.
Tell me, once volunteers serve in their own country, they can go serve in another Core Africa country. So it's sort of a mix between AmeriCorps for African countries and then kind of a Peace Corps model as well, a second Peace Corps.
Interesting. So I was going to ask you, what drew you to this work? Obviously, your time in the Peace Corps was a factor, but was there more? What had you been thinking about this all these years after your stint in the Peace Corps?
It was the incredible young Moroccans that I had met when I was a Peace Corps volunteer who asked me if they could be a Peace Corps volunteer so they could help their country like I was doing. And I had to say, no, it's only for Americans. So it was a specific woman that I remember, although I was asked that question a lot of times, but I do remember this woman that I had met at a cafe, and, her question dogged me for 20 years.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah. What are the key principles that you've told us a little bit about the core of the program, but what are your principles? What is it that you think makes Core Africa Core Africa?
I think the most important lesson, or if the volunteers take away one thing from their year of service, it's humility. It's really about not being the savior themselves. They are not going in to change the world, to help, to do it themselves. These projects don't happen by the volunteers, they happen through them. Their role is to be the facilitator and the liaison and really give ownership to the local people. So it's really got to be about what the local people want. That's probably the most important aspect of Core Africa, the most important core value. But it's also, locals helping locals, local people helping local people, rather than the outside saviors coming in, being the ones with all the answers and all the funding. We're also committed to creating a culture of philanthropy in Africa so that development efforts are also locally owned and locally led.
Is philanthropy significantly different in Africa than we see here in the United States?
It's not as
tradition in the same way?
It's not as mature. A lot of development efforts are funded by outside sources. And I've actually spoken with African philanthropists, and they tell me that that's what the Americans do, or that's what the British do.
Yeah.
And that's got to change, because it's the the people who have provide the funds have the control and the power. And there's a lot of money in Africa now, and there are a lot of people who are committed to investing in Africa's young people in the communities. And so we are trying to give them the opportunity through I think we have a really unique model to begin to encourage local philanthropy, because our projects are really small scale, high impact, and they're short term as well, and they're across the continent. So, and we're investing in the young people, and everybody believes that, especially local businesses who may want to hire our former volunteers, and they understand the importance of investing in this transformative experience of service for these young people, giving them not just that adventure and that understanding of poverty you can only get from living it, but also the critical thinking skills and the problem solving skills, the hands-on experience that they need to be successful.
As you describe it, the impact of your work is on the individual volunteer, it's on their communities, it's probably on the businesses that you just talked about. How do you measure the success of what you do?
That is our biggest challenge. No, it's the most important thing, and it always has been the most important thing for us. I think we have a really unique model also for coming up with tools to measure impact, because we have sort of a laboratory by being in so many different countries, doing so many different projects in so many different places. But over a relatively short period of time, we're working to come up with consistent measurements to measure the wellness of the community, no matter what the project is. That's really the important thing. It's not how many people you train, it's how that training changes the community, the wellness of the community. I used to call it the happiness index. But what we found out when we went in is that these people were already very happy. That wasn't the issue. It was really the quality of life, the opportunity, and the connections. And we're committed to what we call asset-based community development, which training the volunteers, when they go into a community, you don't look around and say, what's wrong here? What needs fixing? You look around and say, what's right here? What can we build on? What are the assets that local people have? And they have a lot of assets.
Mm-hmm. How do you decide where to go next? Or do you say, we have one program in this country, we want to introduce it to another? Or do you have kind of want to go deep somewhere before you go to the next place?
All of those, all of the above. We are, originally we started in Morocco because that's where Peace Corps sent me. We were looking for our next two countries, and we chose Senegal and Malawi because they're politically stable. They have a long history of Peace Corps, which really helps because people know what this is, and the young people want to be Peace Corps volunteers. And, I think that's the best thing that Peace Corps does, is inspire young Africans to take this for themselves. Yeah. We wanted to be geographically diverse, so West Africa, Eastern Africa, and then I went to a conference in Rwanda in 2018, and I was just overwhelmed by how ready they were for Core Africa, the commitment to service, the commitment to personal responsibility, and the engagement of young people, and the need for all these educated young people to apply their education in a way that benefits their country. And so we were able to secure the funding to start immediately in Rwanda. We've been incredibly successful there. And we just secured a major grant from MasterCard Foundation to expand to 4 new countries in the next 3 years. So this year is Ghana and Kenya. Next year, we're planning Ethiopia and Nigeria.
Wow, that's amazing. Congratulations on the grant.
Thanks.
That was a real change for the organization, right? I mean, it's fundamentally got to change you, I assume.
It's what we've been working for a long time, getting the traction. The first grant from OCP Group, which is the Moroccan company that was our first major sponsor back in 2015, we were just in Morocco. And through the Clinton Global Initiative, actually, when they had their conference in Morocco in 2015, OCP Group made a commitment to Core Africa to help us expand to Senegal and Malawi. And in those first groups in Senegal and Malawi, we had Moroccans who had already served in Morocco. So that was really giving us the chance to be what Core Africa is, the Pan-African. We call that the exchange volunteer opportunity mixed with the local volunteers. So we've grown since then, and with this investment in by MasterCard Foundation, it's expanding our model and investing in capacity, and hopefully we want to be in every African country.
Yeah, that's so exciting. Congratulations on the grant.
Thank you so much.
Someday I'm not going to have to ask this question, but I think I still do. And that is, how has COVID affected your work? What challenges did it provide? And I guess the second part of my question is, were there things that you had to adapt because of COVID that you've kept on that was like, that could work for us long term? Maybe, maybe not, but just curious.
Well, actually, I think the COVID experience opened the door to this big funding, because it really did prove the value of our model of locals helping locals. I mean, Peace Corps volunteers were all evacuated worldwide in March of 2020. And our volunteers, we gave them all an opportunity to go home if they wanted. And every single one of them chose to stay at their sites and help the local people get through the crisis. And we were able to immediately pivot them to crisis response. We could get them immediately, I mean, with an email through WhatsApp, the latest guidelines from Africa CDC, which they could translate into the local dialect and teach, host community meetings, tell them about what COVID is, wash your hands a lot, stand 2 meters apart, all of the, and really answer the questions. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of misinformation, and the volunteers had been at their sites for a couple of months, so they were a trusted resource. And so people came to them naturally when they had a question or when they were scared, and the volunteers would provide information. And I think one of the most important things they did was just be a model of calm, hygienic, smart behavior. Stay home. And when there was a lockdown, they did stay in their houses, and they called all their neighbors to make sure they were staying in their houses. They went out, they took a piece of chalk. I mean, this was not expensive stuff. They took a piece of chalk and drew circles on the ground outside of the stores where people should stand. That was our first grant from MasterCard Foundation. They gave us $1,000 micro grants for each volunteer to respond to the crisis. And they bought little tippy tap hand washing machines. So you use your feet to operate it, which they placed around their villages. We didn't just get face masks. We taught local people, local tailors, how to make face masks, and they were able to supplement their income by charging a very small amount for a face mask. But it was about promoting the healthy local economy, keeping people in jobs. And our volunteers, our projects had always been about building resilience. COVID really highlighted that. Projects became focused around resilience. They always were, but it was really a way for us to be more deliberate about the resilience activities and measuring the resilience of communities. So we created a new resilience curriculum and have incorporated that into our core model. So we're still dealing with COVID at their sites. We had actually the second grant from MasterCard Foundation was to help the volunteers extend their service so they could finish their primary projects. And I think they were at their sites for 1.5 years. So this is a historic COVID cohort. But the current groups have been at their sites for 6 months now, and they are still wearing masks. They are still encouraging people to wear masks and wash their hands, and are ready and preparing for the next crisis as well.
That's great. That's amazing. You just worked right through it, right? This is resilience is such a great word that you use about your work and about the volunteers.
Right.
I'm going to ask you a question that I love, but it's probably going to be hard for you, because I'm going to ask you to pick one story maybe of something that has touched you about the work, or a person that you met or volunteer who has kind of transformed how you think about it. Or I'm giving you lots of options, but the point is the story of a village that had volunteers, whatever you choose. And you can do 2 even if you want.
Sure. Great. 2. That's better than 1. It is really hard to choose. I do like to tell the story of a volunteer the very first year in Senegal, a Moroccan volunteer who served in Senegal. His name was Adnan. And he lived in a village. He actually moved to his site and people asked him to teach them Arabic so that they could read the Quran. And in return, they taught him Wolof. So he became really fluent in Wolof. And we brought him home. We had a conference that year where we brought all the volunteers together. So he came back to Morocco during his service, and he went to his city where he's from in Morocco. And he met on the street a Senegalese person who was selling things on the street. And Adnan went up to him and started talking to him in Wolof. And the man started crying. He had been in Morocco for 5 years. He had never met a Moroccan who spoke Wolof. And it was just, I'm getting chills telling this story, but it turned out that this man was from a small village right near where Adnan was serving. So he went back to his village in Senegal and visited this man's family. And it was just such a powerful story. You hear these stories about Peace Corps all the time. You can't create these opportunities. They just sort of happen, and they're starting to happen with Core Africa as well. So that was just a really powerful impact on, this man in the Senegalese man in Morocco. And, it just shows the importance of, learning other languages, and how that really, you talk to somebody in a language they understand, you talk to their head. If you talk to them in a language that their native language, you talk to their heart. And it's a powerful impact, not just on this man, but also on Adnan. Another story is a Moroccan who served in Morocco, Muhi, and he served in Morocco, and then he went to Malawi, and he served in Malawi, and he ended up marrying one of the Malawian volunteers, Dre, and they served together as a married couple in our first group in Rwanda. So that was really exciting as well. And to hear their stories and to have that Pan-African couple in the first group in Rwanda it's been great. And then actually Adnan Muhi went on to work with the African Union volunteer program in Nigeria. Now he's back in Morocco working for an NGO, and Mildred is a Yali fellow, and they're just an incredible couple.
That's fantastic. A dating service within Core Africa, huh?
Yeah, they had a baby actually soon after their Rwanda service.
But I see, as you tell those stories, I see the joy in your face about the work and the people. It's not just work, right? It's about the people. And thank you for sharing those. A question I have is a little bit related to the Purpose Prize, and that is each of the Purpose Prize honorees are founders of organizations, right? It's not just that you went to a good cause and took it on, but you have founded an organization and built organizations. What advice would you give to people? And I don't mean necessarily people who want to do the work you do, but who are passionate about an issue or committed enough that they want to jump in. Any advice for people?
If I knew how hard it was going to be, I don't know if I would have done it. I never wanted to start an NGO. I always thought there were too many NGOs in the world, and, maybe go find an NGO that does something similar to what you do and see if you can work with them to do it, rather than starting your own thing, which just brings on so much additional headache, I guess, and bureaucracy. For us, there really wasn't an organization we could go to, and nobody was doing it. So, I had to, make it my whole life and make sure that it happened, because it needed to happen. But advice, think of it as your child. It really is just like, if you don't believe in it with your heart and soul, it's not going to work, because it takes that kind of commitment. And don't give up. Tenacity, I think, is the key ingredient.
I was in another meeting today about the Purpose Prize, and that was the word I used. It's the common denominator is tenacity. Against all odds, Purpose Prize winners go at a problem and stick to it. And there's more to come, right? So tell us about what we can do to be involved, or how to support the work, or any kind of call to action that you might want us to take on.
Our website is www.corpsafrica.org. We are of course, always looking for supporters, especially monthly donors. This is our long-term predictable support. It's so valuable. But we are also, if you have connections, partners, we don't do anything ourselves to Core Africa. I always joke that we're like Seinfeld, we're an NGO about nothing. Actually, we're about everything, and we want to partner with everyone out there. The role of the volunteer is to facilitate and then connect to the resources to the NGO. So if you are doing projects, if you want to support an effort in one of the countries where we work, our volunteers can often help you do that, and they can provide the last mile logistics to make these efforts successful. So we want to partner with anyone who will partner with us.
Liz, thank you so much for the conversation today, and thank you for your tenacity for all that you do. And again, thank you to IdeaGen for having us today.
Thanks to IdeaGen and to AARP.
Okay, thanks.